Good evening everyone, it's time to do another character guide for Tekken 7, and in this video I want to teach you all about how to play King, one of the most iconic Tekken characters of all time. Along with Yoshimitsu, I think he's like the most defining Tekken character. They've been in every game and they're probably going to be in every game going forward. Unfortunately, over all of my years playing Tekken, I haven't spent all that much time with King, meaning that I had to do a lot of research in preparation for this tutorial. And this is where I need to give a very big shout out to one of my viewers. I'm sorry man, I'm probably going to mispronounce your name, but Senad Mihanovic is one of my viewers and he's a King player. And to help out with the guide, he sent me his own research package on King, and he obviously put a lot of work into it. It was something like 14 written pages of information, so that was really cool of you. Thank you so much, and if you're watching this, please leave a comment so that everybody else can thank you too. But yeah, we're going to jump into the tutorial where we usually do with block punishment. The first thing I want to mention before we do that though is that King has one of the biggest move lists of any character of all time. So there's no way you could mention everything in a 1 hour guide. I mean, you could do a 2 or 3 hour guide exclusively on his throws, I think, if you wanted to. So I'm just going to give you a sort of basic cookie cutter version of the character that you can take online, start having some success with, and then if you find that you like the character, then you can start sort of developing that in whatever direction you choose. But for now, let's start talking about block punishment. So for standing 10 frames, you've got 1-2 and you've got 2-1. These both come out at 10 frames. Obviously they give you 22 damage and they both land you at +6. So these are very similar, and it's a matter of preference basically. I would say use the 1-2. That would be my personal recommendation, because it has this 1-2-1 follow-up, which is slightly delayable and a mid. And having a little cheeky mid is a useful thing for King, because it allows him to create mix-ups with his very powerful throws, which are highs. So that's a useful little option, which is why I would say that the 1-2 is maybe the slightly preferable option. But it's a matter of preference basically. Then for 12 frames you've got back 1-2, fantastic move, does amazing damage at 33, which is very high for a 12 frame block punisher. It doesn't knock down or anything, it doesn't give you a wall splat, but it gives you great damage and a massive frame advantage. So you can use this to rack up a lot of damage and then go straight into a powerful mix-up. So it's an important move. It's one that you should apply when you need a very quick whiff punish, or when you block anything that is between -12 and -14. You can use this to really stack up some damage and get a mix-up. So it's an important move. The back one by itself is very important, but we're going to talk more about that later. And then for 15 frames you get a launcher. King has a hop kick. It's a sort of average hop kick. You can see here from a starting position, if I reset positioning, the hop kick is going to reach, so it has a better range than you would assume. It's much better than something like Kazumi, even though it is a hop knee. So in the case of King, I actually think the fact that he has this hop knee instead of a hop kick is a little bit of an advantage, because in case you didn't know, when you attack with a knee instead of a foot like a normal hop kick, it means that the move cannot be generically parried. So it's a slight advantage, but it's a great little launcher, and it's what you're going to use for 15 frame block punishment usually. It's also, a powerful low crush tool and an important move overall. And then the last standing block punisher we need to mention is forward 2-1, and the reason that this is important is that it's 15 frames, same as your hop kick, but it's got very good range. It's going to hit from like somewhere like right there, meaning that when you need to apply a powerful punisher where the hop kick is not going to reach, that this is going to be your best option. So if you're fighting against one of those knockback moves and you need to sort of get in and get a powerful punish, you can do this. It's got great range, and it's going to wall splat your opponent as well. So this is another great option for a whiff punisher. It's one of his best whiff punishers, and you should collect it when you can. Really great move. It's also an important wall carry tool, but I'll probably show that a little bit later. So that's standing block punishment. Then for while standing, you've got at 11 frames, of course, while standing 4. This is an above average while standing 4. You can see that it sparks on normal hit for 20 damage. It's got above average range, I think, so this is a very good one. And you're going to be happy when you can collect this when you block one of those fast low pokes. So very decent. And then for let's see here, 14 frames, you've got your while standing 2-2. Extremely powerful move. It's a spin move. It causes the sort of ballet spin, which means that you can wall splat with it, meaning that it's very powerful. And yeah, this is just a great move overall. You can do it out of crouch dash. I'll probably talk more about crouch dash a little bit later, but a great punisher. And then if you need a launcher at 15 frames, you've got full crouch down for 2, which is an extremely good move because it has extreme range. It does leads to good damage, and so it's a premium whiff punisher as well as your best while standing launcher, in my opinion. But you can also obviously use the hop kick option from crouch if you want to. Alright, so that's it for punishment. It's not everything obviously, but I think it's what you need to get started. Now let's start talking about some important moves. If we're going to start talking about some mids, I think that down forward 1 is a good place to start. I'm familiar with this move because I actually had a period in Tekken Tag 2 where I played Alex and Roger, which is a little bit weird maybe, but those characters have this move or this string as well. The down forward 1 by itself is a 14 frame mid, so it's very fast, even though it's not as fast as a generic, 13 frame down forward 1. But it's almost there, and it has very decent properties overall, so I like the move. This is going to give you -1 when you get blocked and +5 on hit, meaning that it's, a generic tool for opening up offense. You can harass opponents with it. It's not quite as advantageous as you might like for your fast mid poke, but it's got very decent properties overall, and it should be used. And then an interesting thing about it is that it has this down forward 1-2 extension, which as you can see is mid first of all, which is very important. And the great thing about this is that the second hit is delayable. If you don't delay it, you just do it like this. This is -10 on block, meaning that it can be punished. But if you delay the second hit like this, the move actually becomes completely safe. I think the recovery is like 1 frame better, so you land at -9, meaning that you become completely safe. And it means that this string can be used for really great mid poking up close. It's very, very powerful. And yeah, you're going to use it when you need a mid for Oki and stuff as well, so I think it's a great move overall. But if you want a slightly faster mid poke, you've got down forward 2. Down forward 2 is a great move. This is 13 frames, so it's slightly faster, but the frame data unfortunately is a little bit worse. You're at -6 on block and you get +3 on hit. So the only way to really continue your offense after hitting with this or after using this is if you get a hit. If you get a block, then you should probably go back on the defensive, maybe consider some sort of movement option, but for the most part just go back into blocking if you should get this move blocked. But that's your 2 most basic tools for sort of mid poking up close: down forward 1 with the delayed extension 2 and the down forward 2. And then obviously you're going to use your jabs for normal jab things. The 1 jab by itself, as always, an extremely important move for any character. Okay, next I think we should talk about, let's mention back 1 actually. Back 1 is a 12 frame move, like I mentioned. Back 1-2 is the 12 frame block punisher, but the important thing about back 1 by itself is that it is, if we can get a key charge going here on a control pad, it's not easy, is that it is a powerful counter hit launcher. Very, very dangerous and very, very fast. It's not 11 frames like some of those great Magic 4s, but at 12 frames it's still extremely fast. It's got great properties. It's got better range than similar moves with the same notation, for example from Miguel. I think this is very, very good overall, and if you're good at poking like mid and then setting up like counter hits up close, this is going to be a great tool for you. It's going to feel very, very rewarding, and if you've ever been a Steve player as well and you know how to set up moves like this, it's going to yield you so much damage, and then you can go in to do, all kinds of combos. But yeah, the move is very, very powerful. Just be aware that you are at -8 on block, and it is a high, meaning that it is both duckable and even though it's not punishable, you are at quite a disadvantage on block, so you can't really continue your offense. So this is something that you try and interrupt your opponent's offense with. If you've created a frame trap and your opponent falls for it, you can get a counter hit, and then it's going to lead to great damage. So a very important close-up tool for King. Next, let's mention the chest bump. This should maybe actually be in the wall section because it's such a great move at the wall. But if we go over to the wall and turn off counter it for now, let's talk a little bit about it. You don't have to be at the wall to use chest bump forward 1+4, but it's preferential because of the limited range of the move. It's quite limited, and so when they're at the wall it's easier to connect with it. But the main thing about this move is that it's basically going to land you in an advantageous position anytime you connect with your opponent's hitbox. Because the move is it's 18 frames to come out first of all, which is kind of slow, so it might not be the best idea to throw out like in a close-up situation. It's more like when you're trying to do some sort of setup. Maybe you've already got a frame advantage, maybe you're applying it for Oki, which is a very good idea, but slightly on the slow side. But then you get +4 on block and +6 on hit. I'm pretty sure is still the correct frame data, meaning that no matter if it gets blocked or you get a hit, you can go into powerful mix-up stuff. And this is obviously extra good at the wall because your opponent, you're not going to whiff with it because they can't back away from it. And then if you're successful in your mix-up, you can score a powerful wall splat for the follow-up. So extremely good move, and very, very good strong mid if something on the slow side. The range is not as bad as you might think. You can see you can hit from like almost range 2, so it's very decent and a powerful move overall. Comes highly recommended. I also want to give a mention to Forward 3. Forward 3 is sort of a kind of a move that gets very, very well used by king players who are experienced and good. You don't see it used that much by newer king players. The thing about this move is that it is a 15 frame mid first of all, so it's quite fast. It's -8 on block, meaning that it is completely safe. But if you press 1+2 on hit like that, he's going to go into a sort of command throw, attack throw kind of thing, and you're gonna knock your opponent down. You're gonna be in a very advantageous position, and so the thing you want to do with this move, because this 1+2 command, the timing is very specific, so this is definitely something you want to practice if you want to be a good king player. I think it's important. You can tell that I'm messing it up a lot here because I haven't practiced it, obviously, but what you want to do with this move is basically, it's going to be hard for you to know whether or not this is going to hit or not, and you can only get this throw follow-up on hit. So practice pressing the 1+2 with the correct timing, and then holding back, so that even if you don't get the hit, even if you should get blocked, you've gone straight back into block and you're actually back in a defensive position. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well right now, but basically what I mean is that you should press the 1+2 with the correct timing, whether or not you know you're going to get a hit. If you get a hit, then you're going to get this very good follow-up, and if you don't, then you can just go back on the defensive. There's no like inherent disadvantage to pressing the 1+2 on block, as far as I know. And like I said, -8, so the move is safe, but it is a very, very good move, and it's also an important combo tool for king. But yeah, very, very high potential, so I think this move is very good. And if you can learn to get that timing out, and you can use this move to like get that knockdown a lot of the time, I think it's going to be sort of one of those things that separates a more successful, more advanced king player from a newer and less experienced one. Okay, is there anything in terms of like close-up game we need to talk about for now? We talked about down forward 2, we talked about the chest bump. Yeah, I'm going to mention forward 4 here because it's, I think, your best homing move. It's a great homing move. This is a fantastic attack overall. It's just got all these great properties. It kind of reminds me of forward 3 from Claudio. It's very similar. You can see he jumps up in the air. It's a mid, it's homing, and it is safe. Forward 4 is -9, so it's exactly like Claudio's forward 3 actually. It's going to catch sidesteppers and sidewalkers, obviously. It's got great range. It's relatively fast at 18 frames considering like how powerful it is, and it's probably going to be like your most important option for wall splatting opponents as well. You can use this anytime you're mixing your opponent up as a mid option, because it's going to give you decent damage and score you a knockdown while being safe. So it's sort of easy to use, low risk option for a mid mix up. But yeah, the move is just overall really fantastic, and one of the most important wall splatting tools you could ever have. I've mentioned this in a lot of videos. If you're one of those fortunate characters like Shaheen, King, Leo, who have a wall splatting homing mid, then you should be very happy, because basically it means that when you're in this position, when your opponent's back is to the wall, their main priority, if they are an advanced enough Tekken player that they are thinking about positioning, is they're going to try and get away from that position any way they can, because it's very dangerous. One way to do that for them is to start sidewalking and sidestepping, obviously, and that's where you catch them with a homing safe mid, extremely low risk, and then you can get all kinds of damage, right? So that's a digression, but it's an extremely good move. Alright, I think I'm gonna leave it there for now. There are many things we could have added to this, but I think for just normal close-up poking game, know that your jabs are good. You have that delay for the 1. You've got a down forward 1, which is 14 frames and decent. You have a follow-up in the 2. If you delay it, you go from -10 to -9, like that, meaning that the move becomes safe. If you need something slightly faster, you have down forward 2. Which is not that advantageous in terms of frame data, but it is probably your fastest mid poke. You've got great tools like forward 3, which you should try and follow up with a 1+2 on hit like this. You've got forward 4 for a great homing move, and if you want to get setups anytime you think your opponent is about to hesitate, I think the chest bump is a great option. So I'm gonna keep it there for now, very simple, and now I think I want to talk a little bit about King's lows. So the first move I'm going to mention here is down 3. I think down 3 is King's like most prominent low in terms of like pokes. It's very fast, it's got decent range, and I really like it. This is a great mid poke. Like, you can just tell if you're a Tekken player and you see like the hitbox of this, and you sort of see how fast it is, you can just tell that this is going to be a great move. It's one of those things. It's also great for Oki. In terms of frame data, it comes out at 17 frames, meaning that it is a completely unseeable low poke. That's important. It's only -12 on block, meaning that even if you do get it blocked, most of the time the worst thing you're ever going to have to eat is a while standing 4, which, unless you're playing against, Kazumi, Mishima's, or maybe Leo, who has probably the best while standing 11 frame Punisher. It's very low risk. It's extremely low risk. You're not going to eat a lot of damage even if you get this punished. So it's a great little low poke. King, it should be mentioned here. I'm just going to have a sip of water, excuse me. King is sort of known for not having great lows. And I guess, yeah, let's just talk about this. It's something that needs to be said when it comes to King, okay? Something a lot of people talk about when they talk about King, people who are a little bit more experienced with how like the system of Tekken works, say that he has poor lows, and for that reason he needs to substitute his lows with using throws. And that might sound like a little bit of a weird concept if you're new to Tekken, because throws are highs. How can like a throw be a stand-in for a low? How can I compensate for the fact that I have bad lows? Well, by using throws. And so if you think a little bit deeper about that, you're going to realize that it makes a lot of sense, because one of the main strategies, one of the main mind games that you play in Tekken is that you're trying to, when you're applying low pokes like this, you're trying to force your opponent to duck. So the way you do that is you keep applying lows like this, and they rack up damage. Eventually your opponent is going to be annoyed enough, or be starting to have to worry about the amount of damage he's eating, that he's going to try and duck to block one of these lows. And when he does that, if you can predict that moment correctly and apply a mid, such as a hop kick, then you get a launch. And so one of the main strategies and one of the main mind games, and this goes back to like all different versions of Tekken, it's one of those classic concepts, is you're trying to force opponents to crouch by applying lows, or by applying highs, but mainly by applying sort of dangerous lows, or harassing them continually with fast low pokes. Now, if you're playing a character like King who doesn't necessarily have great lows, the way you can use his throws to substitute for that is, okay, if you have really powerful King throws, like say for example the giant swing, this throw, King's probably most dangerous throw, might be one of the most dangerous throws in Tekken overall. your opponent's going to be very, very scared of that. And so when you're in a mix-up situation, your opponent's going to be afraid of you applying one of these throws. And if they're not confident that they're going to be able to break that throw correctly and get out of that situation, the best option that they have to avoid the throw is to try and duck under it and then launch you from while standing. And so you're using these dangerous throws, and sometimes you're not even applying them, you're just threatening them because people know about them because of, you know, how powerful King's throws really are, like the giant swing, you know, like the Tijuana Twister, that they're going to start ducking, and so that's when you can start applying your mids. And so I don't know how great that explanation was, but basically King doesn't have super dangerous lows overall, but that's where his powerful throws come in. It's another strategy you can use to apply a mind game on your opponent and try and force them to duck. Then you're trying to predict when your opponent's going to make that mistake and make that duck, and when he does, that's when you're going to be there with a mid. That's the basic concept. But moving on, talking about King lows, I think down 3 is basically a one-stop shop for low pokes for King. I think it's very, very good. The only thing that it doesn't really have is that it doesn't have high crush properties, obviously, and so if you really feel that you need that, I think down 4 is a great generic option. You know, it's a very generic down 4. This is something that most characters have a version of, but you know, you should not underestimate the power of a generic tool like this, especially like in terms of round enders and stuff. It's a great little move, and it's going to give you that high crush if you feel you need that tacked onto your low poke, because you can't get that from down 3, right? Okay, I'm also going to mention down back 3 here. Down back 3 is a very long range but slightly slower low. You can see that the range on this is massive, and I think it's a great move. It's a little bit on the slow side. It is in the seeable range at 23 frames. It gives you 17 damage, which is not huge, but the reason this move is really good is, well, first of all, you can use it to set up throws, but the other and slightly more important thing about it is that this is going to give you a full launch on counter hit. And so I want you to think about this move the exact same way you think about like the down back 4 sweep from Lars. We have a couple of those sweeps in the game where they are slightly faster than like a snake edge style sweep, meaning that they're usually just like a keep out big low with good high crush properties, but they then as a trade-off need to get the counter hit to be able to launch. But you can definitely score powerful counter hits with this move, especially from a range, and when you do, like, the combo is very easy to do and it leads to good damage. So I think this is a good low, and yeah, I'd probably use it. I think especially effective online, where, you know, 23 frames if you're playing offline against a good player is quite seeable if your opponent is crisp, but if you're playing online with native lag and stuff like that, it becomes even more powerful, and so I think the move is good. The last low I'm going to mention here in terms of like my recommendations is it's a little bit of a weird input. It's forward neutral 2. So this is 4-4-2 from King. This is not what you're trying to do. Basically what you need to do is press forward, let go of your directional inputs completely, and then input your 2. And that's the difference, right? And if you do that correctly, he's going to do this low here. So yeah, and then you can go into the giant swing like that, which is what I wanted to show you. Basically, I think this low is so good because you can come in from a range. It's pretty fast. It's hard to see. I think it comes out at something like, is it like 15 frames? Oh no, sorry, it's minus 15 frames on block. So I think it's fast enough that it's not going to get reacted to all that often at all. But it is minus 15 on block, so if it does get blocked, then you can potentially get launched. A lot of characters in the cast have the ability to launch at 15 frames from while standing. But as long as it doesn't get blocked, I think this move is exceptionally good. I think it's really, really good, and I've played around with it a little bit in practice mode in preparation for this tutorial, and I realized that this is like a very unique and very cool move that I wish I had on a lot of my characters. So as you can see, like, it gives you a nice position here to set up like any kind of mix-up on hit. Mainly throws is going to be like the main thing, but obviously you can come up here with any kind of like mid. It does not recover in full crouch, so if I for example, if I do it into 4 here, you can see that King is going to perform a standing 4, not a while standing 4, so it does not recover in full crouch. And Let's see if I can get this off again. This is where you really find out that I'm not a king main. Yeah, like you can see, it's a very good setup tool for like stuff like the giant swing. So it's a premium option for that, and it's important to know how to set up your throws with king. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail about that later, but I think it's a fantastic though, especially from a range. And then the last thing, which is like a huge cherry on top of the sundae with this move, is that if you get a counter it with it, it just turns into this extremely powerful attack throw out of nowhere, and you get 50 damage. So what a great move, what a fantastic move. It's you know, high crushing low. You can come in from a range if you get a hit with it, which you should always do, because I don't think it's really seeable and reactable. You can set up all kinds of stuff for a mix up. If you should get a counter hit, then you know, you just get this mega powerful knockdown, 51 damage, and I think it's fantastic. So yeah, very unique, weird little input, weird little move. King has a couple of moves like that where he needs to do forward and then like neutral, but yeah, the move is fantastic, and I really recommend it. Okay, we've talked about some generic close-up tools, we've talked about some lows. I think maybe we should just mention that he has a Mishima-style crouch dash before we start talking about throws. And I'm not going to go into too much detail when it comes to throws, because like I said, that's a section that needs to be so much bigger. But I'm going to give you like a little bit of a starter package in terms of important throws for him, okay? But let's mention for now that you have access to a Mishima-style crouch dash. It looks like this, and it's you know, it's generic in terms of Mishima-style crouch dashes. The thing about King is, like, a lot of people, there's like a debate online sometimes when you look at you know, King forums and stuff about, does King need to apply his crouch dash, or can he just ignore it? And when you get questions like that, you're usually talking to people who, you know, find the move or the technique, whatever it may be, difficult to do, and so they want a more experienced player to say, no, it's fine, you can be a great Tekken player without using this tool. And then they can sort of feel better about the fact that they're not worrying about learning it. And I don't think that's something that you should do, because obviously any tool you can add to your toolbox when you're playing Tekken is going to be a benefit, and this is no exception. The thing about King's crouch dash, and the reason why some people would say that it's maybe not as useful as, you know, obviously a Mishima one from like Kazuya, is that he basically just gets access to his while standing moveset. So like, this is while standing 3, and this is crouch dash 3. This is while standing 4, this is crouch dash 4. This is while standing 2, this is crouch dash 2. And so he just has like access to these moves, but his while standing moves are all pretty good. And so going in here, you know, covering some serious ground while crushing highs and doing while standing moves like this, it's definitely not a bad thing to be able to do. So just be aware that you mainly have access to like your main, your standard while standing moveset out of it. But then there's stuff you can do in terms of like setting up throws from the crouch dash and stuff. That's something like, if we ever do like advanced throw setup stuff, you know, guide with King, then we're gonna have to talk more about that. But for now, just be aware that it exists, and if you're already a player who's comfortable with using stuff like this, it's going to be a benefit to you. And it's also useful in some, I think if you're doing some like cookie cutter max min combos, you can use it in those as well. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about important throws. So you know, you've got generic throws, obviously 1 throw, 2 throw. You don't really need to use these with King all that much, because in Tekken 7, as you probably already know, generic throws like 1 throws and 2 throws can be broken by pressing either punch button, meaning that they are much more likely to get randomly broken or broken on reaction, because your opponent just happens to be pressing one of the punch buttons. And so with a lot of characters, you're trying to apply throws that are more difficult than that to break. And because King is the most advanced grappler in the game by far, he has all of these great options outside of his generic throws that are very much more difficult to break, and so he should use them instead. The first throw, we've already looked at it a couple of times in this guide. I'm going to show it to you now. This is the giant swing. You've probably seen it before. It's probably the most iconic King move in the game. Is that fair to say? I think so. And the thing about the giant swing is that Okay, first of all, it's going to throw the opponent behind you. And if you're at the wall, mainly what I'm trying to say is if king's back is to the wall and you do this throw, then he's going to throw them onto the wall for extra damage, and it's going to completely nullify your opponent's ability to decrease the amount of damage that this throw does. Let's see, yeah, okay, now it's coming out nicely. You can tell that, you know, I'm obviously not a king main, but this is not a hard throw to do whatsoever. This is a pretty easy input once you get it into muscle memory. And so this is definitely something that if you're not able to do at the moment, you're gonna have to sit in practice mode for a couple of hours, practice getting the giant swing out reliably like this, and then you're gonna start practicing stuff like, you know, down jab into giant swing, which I'm managing to mess up right now. Okay, there we go. Like I say, this is just something that you need to practice, and it's not hard to do if you're already a king player, but the input is forward, quarter circle forward, 1. So you tap forward once. Let's turn on a command history for this. It might be a little bit more yeah, educational, if you can see. So I tap 1, I do, you can see there, I tap forward, and then I do a half circle forward, so back, down, down, forward, 1, and then I get the giant swing. And so if you don't know about throw, like input buffering when it comes to throws like this, it is basically one of the most important techniques you could ever pick up when it comes to king. You need to buffer this throw out of things with king in order to be really successful with him, because it's so powerful that if you're not doing it, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot and you're hampering your king's potential. I've made a basic explanation of how to do this on this channel. It's a while ago, it's a little bit of an old video. It's called input buffering, but it's on the channel, and I think the explanation is solid enough that I want to recommend it. If you haven't seen it, then go check it out, because you need to know how to do this. But basically the theory is that because the input of this throw is kind of long, if you're just standing in your opponent's face and you're performing the forward, half circle forward 1, that's going to take way too much time, and it's going to leave you open. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to like do another move like a down jab, and then you're trying to perform your giant swing input during the animation of the previous move. When the animation you're already in ends, then all you do is you press the forward and the 1, and the giant swing comes out instantly and becomes very quick, very hard to react to, and so much more powerful. Oh yeah, and we were talking about the wall. I'm sorry, let's get back to that. So this throw, if you get thrown by it, there is a way to reduce the damage that it deals, because you can actually tech roll off of this throw. So king is going to throw you into the air, and if you're able to time it correctly, you can tech roll and you can make the throw do reduced damage. Let's have a drink of water here. If this throw gets tech rolled, it's going to do 45 damage, which is still a lot. It's very powerful for a throw, so it's still good. If it doesn't get tech rolled, it's going to do 65, which is basically like premium damage for a normal combo of like something like a hop kick. And if it hits the wall, it's going to do 70 damage, which is very, very high. And the important thing to note about the wall spot that I started explaining earlier is that if your opponent hits the wall when they get thrown by this, they have no option to tech roll. Tech rolling it becomes impossible, and so as long as the throw is not broken, you're guaranteed 70 damage, which is huge. Giant swing is broken with a 1 button, which is important. And so the next throw I want to show you is my main recommendation for a mix-up throw for giant swing, because if you're just doing, you know, your giant swings like this and your opponent starts breaking them with 1, you need another option to mix that up with. And so my recommendation for that is going to be the Tijuana Twister, which is this move. And the reason I think this feels good for like a mix-up for giant swing is that the giant swing, like I said, it's forward, half circle forward 1, and the Tijuana Twister is forward, half circle forward 2. So you're basically just using the 1 button instead of the 2 button, and it becomes a very sort of easy initial mix-up option to learn for king players. let's see, there it is. Yeah, and this gives you 50 damage, puts you in a very advantageous position. It's very, very good damage for a throw. And while the giant swing is broken with there it is broken with the 1 button, the Tijuana Twister is broken with the 2 button, and so it's a really nice little throw mix-up, and I would recommend using these 2 throws in tandem. There are obviously many more throws and multi-throws and stuff that you can use here, but this is what I want to give you for now, and start mixing these throws up, start experimenting with using movement and positioning to try and get your opponent to hit the wall when you're using giant swing, and this is going to work when you're in corners and stuff and the wall isn't right behind you as well, and it's very important. So yeah, those are going to be like my main 2 initial options, and like I said, you can tell that I'm messing the inputs for these throws up quite a bit in this tutorial because like I said, I'm not a king player, but they are easy to perform if you commit them to muscle memory. Just go into practice mode and do them over and over, and once you can do that quite reliably, start doing stuff like a 1 jab and then do one of the throws like that, and then start doing basic buffering, and once you're able to do that, it's going to really ramp up the power of your king. And the last throw I'm going to mention before I move on here is we need to talk about let's get some distance here. Shining Wizard. Shining Wizard is a running throw, which is very powerful. It's one of King's most important tools. Let's see, let's get it a couple of times here so I can get warmed up a bit. Yeah, and that's an instant version right there, not like a point blank instant version obviously, but if you know about like while running moves in this game, basically you can do like a running animation from downtown like this, and you can do a move and you can get a running move like that, so it's just like a a running 3-slash kick, or you can be like a mid-range and you can do a forward 3 times and you can do it like that, and you get 40 damage and a knockdown. It's very powerful. It's while running 2 + 4 for the input. This throw needs to be broken with 1 + 2. So it's a very powerful tool for approaching your opponent. It's used for Oki sometimes. You can run at your opponent when they're getting up, and as soon as they get up, they're already sort of in the in the Shining Wizard. This is also important in terms of like combos, which I'm going to show you later. But if you've ever played against King Online, you've seen this throw. It's King players love it for good reason, and the advanced technique with this throw, right, is to be able to apply it instantly from a really short range, and that's like the same thing with stuff like Dragunov when he's doing running 2 and stuff like that. If you're able to like become good enough at doing true instant while running stuff, then you can apply this very powerful throw from basically a point blank range, and that's very powerful obviously. But just like from a mid-range, doing it with 3 forwards and maybe running at your opponent doing it, but that's liable to get ducked. Fortunately, however, the next move I want to talk about here, or the next 2 moves, are moves that are going to be very useful in terms of like mixing your opponent up and doing powerful mids when you're trying to close the distance. The first one I'm going to mention is while running, I think while running 3. Yep. While running 3 is a great move. Let's have a look at the frame data here. Yeah, so this is +0 to +5 on block, meaning that it's one of those moves that gets different advantage depending on range. But it's a powerful knockdown mid. 25 damage is really big. It's safe, obviously. I mean, it's plus on block for the most part. It's going to give you wall splats. It is such a powerful move, and because people are scared of the Shining Wizard when King is running at them, it becomes very likely to hit a lot of the time. So yeah, this is a great move for King, and I would probably use it a lot if I was a King player. And then the other main like approaching tool from like downtown that is super good, you can use this up close as well if you want to, is 4-1. Sahad, the guy who sent me his like research notes on King, mentioned that he actually thought this was the most powerful move that King has. And like looking a little bit closer at the frame data, I have to agree that at least that this move is extremely powerful. I don't think it would have framed it this good on most other characters, but it's -5 on block, meaning that it is completely safe. It gives you a huge chunk of damage. It is mid, completely safe. It's a homing move, meaning that you can use to close the distance and catch people who are trying to move sideways, which is very good. You're going to get the wall splat. It's a spin move, and then it also gives you a massive launch on counter hit. And you can follow up with another 4-1. So it's like a really, really powerful move that's really bad for no reason. Like it's slightly slow maybe when you're up close, but in any other situation it's almost never risky to apply this move. It can only lead to good things for you. It's such a good move, and it covers so many different options. So yeah, what a fantastic mid for King, and I agree that it is definitely one of his best moves. And it becomes even better because of the fact that you can use running 3 and you can use 4-1 to mix up the Shining Wizard when you're closing the distance to the opponent. I think that's very important. Okay, I think I want to talk a little bit about combos pretty soon. But first, let's just mention that up for 3 is another move that I think is very unique and very important for King. I think it's absolutely amazing, and it's another one of those things that I think a lot of characters that I play lack, and I would love to have it. Basically, you can tell that this is a powerful knockdown mid, but the reason it's really important is King has a lot of options for like grounding himself. He can lie down on the floor when he wants to, with drop kicks and stuff like that. I think this move is the best option that has that property. And the reason this is so good is that even if you get this blocked, you're ending up on the floor, meaning that you're going to eat downscale damage. It's going to be hard for your opponent to deal damage to you. It's a very safe position to be in, which means that it's ideal for stalling. And so if you're playing defensively or in a game with a lot of blocking, you've got a life lead and you're nearing the end of the round, you can do this mid. If you get a hit, then you get a lot of damage, and you might take the round. But if you get blocked or whatever happens, you just get down on the ground. You're able to stall your opponent out for time, and you might run out the clock, meaning that you can get rounds that way. And it's a cool technique that good Tekken players use on occasion, and I think King excels at it with a move like this. But Brian is another character who has options like this as well. But I just wanted to mention this because I think it is a potentially very interesting move. Okay, so in this section I want to talk about King's important launchers. I'm going to give you some quick tips for Oki, and then I'm going to show you how to combo with the character, because with him I feel like this is all kind of connected. So let's start with the hop kick. I'm going to give you a very generic and easy to do option for the hop kick. That's going to be a sort of a generic combo that you can use off of most of his launchers. It's going to be one variety of this combo one way or another. Two things to mention here. First of all, I've turned on command history by popular request for this section. The other thing is that this move can be used to create max damage combos with King that are very hard to perform. They're not something you should worry about when you're new to the character. They're actually hard enough to do that even high-level King experts sometimes just decide not to use them, because it's hard enough to do that. Even if you're good with the character, you run a high risk of dropping the combo in a competitive match. So I'm not going to go through the 4-1 combo in this section, but what I want to show you first of all is I'm going to show you the combo, and then we're going to talk through how it works. So off of the hop kick, this is what I recommend. So this is very easy to perform. It's going to give you 60 damage, which is good for a hop kick. You can see there are a lot of inputs down here because I'm using button buffering during the combo to make it even easier to perform. But the combo is I do a launch, I do a forward 3, then I float him with down forward 4-3, I spin with down forward 2-1, and then you're doing your Shining Wizard for the ender, which is King's most important combo ender. He's going to use it like 90% of the time to end his combos because it does good damage and it leads him to a very good Oki situation. There's another combo you can do here, and it looks like this. Let's see if we can get it. It's not hard to do at all, but I haven't practiced it all that much. There we go. Okay, so basically you get 2 more damage if you do a standing 4 instead of the forward 3 for your second attack in the combo. The only difference in terms of execution is that before you do the down forward 4-3, you need to do a very small dash, and it needs to be quite fast. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up getting this instead. Let's see here. This last hit of the spin is going to whiff like that, so you need to do a micro dash, but if you do that, you're going to be able to get 62 instead of 60, which is a small increase, but it's not that difficult, execution wise, so it might be worth doing. That's probably what I would try and get down as my standard combo if I was using King. Alright, so before we move on to other launchers, let's just talk a little bit about the throw ender and why the Oki situation is important. King doesn't get a lot of damage in his combo fillers. He likes to use this as his ender because it's a throw, so it scales differently in terms of damage than normal attacks, meaning that he can get premium combo damage. But he also gets this powerful Oki situation. So if I, for example, let's show you the main wall carry conversion. That's 4-1. You see he only gets 51 damage. It's a very good wall carry conversion in terms of like hitbox and properties overall, but it doesn't do great damage. And so what a lot of King players will do is, even if they have the potential to get the wall, they will actually use this running throw as an ender anyway, because it's going to give you more damage, and then you can go straight into good strong Oki, and that's sometimes an even more favorable position than actually getting the wall. In terms of Oki after this throw, because you're going to use it so much, I just want to give you a quick starter package. For the low, I think down 3 is the best option. This is extremely fast, and I think the only option your opponent has if they want to escape this is they have to do a toe kick, basically. I'm not 100% sure there, so maybe if you're very knowledgeable, you could inform us in the in the comment section. But that's like the main option for the low. You can do other stuff like down back 3, obviously, if you want to go with something slower. And then the main mid I'm going to give you here is down back 2, which is a fantastic King move that we haven't mentioned yet. And down back 2 is a safe mid launcher. It's only -5, which is very good considering how powerful the move is. And so that's just a very generic little starter package for like Oki after this throw. But if you can just learn to do this combo and apply this little mix up at the end, then you've already gotten quite far with like in terms of like being successful in online matches with King. So yeah, that's the mid, that's the low, and we've talked about the hop kick combo. So now let's talk about his other launchers and what you need to do off of them. So we mentioned down back 2 here. For down back 2, the forward 3 for the follow-up right there is not going to hit. So basically what you do for the easy combo is you just skip the forward 3 and you go straight into down forward 4-3, which gives you this. Oh, sorry, I managed to mess that up somehow. You got to run a little bit deep there because it's quite close, but that's going to give you 60 damage. So that's what you have off of that. Again, there might be cookie cutter options that give you even more. Let's turn on counter hit and talk about I think back 1 next. Very important move for King. His fastest counter hit tool at 12 frames. Very, very important, and with this you can actually get the forward 3, so you're just going to do the same combo as you would off of the hop kick, unless you're using the standing 4 option, obviously. So that's again easy to understand, easy to perform. Off of the other main like counter hit move that I'm going to show you here, the down back 3, you're going to do a while standing 2-2 into the Shining Wizard, and basically all you do here is you do the down back 3, and if you see the counter you just press 2-2, because this recovers in full crouch, so you're automatically going to get the while standing 2-2. And yeah, even though it's a very short combo, it gives you really good damage at 65, so easy to do. And then you get your normal favorite Oki situation with King, which you're going to learn to work off of really effectively if you play this character over time. Another important move is the full crouch down forward one. I don't know if we've talked about this yet, and I don't think we have. It's an important King move because of the fact that normally a very slow, low launcher like this would be way too dangerous to use in competitive play a lot of the time if it was like a snake edge. Thing about this move is that it's not launch punishable on block. It's very slow, so your opponent is going to be able to react to it a lot of the time. But if they don't, then you can get a powerful launch. And as you can see, the range is absolutely massive on this thing. you can extend the range even more by using it out of a crouch dash like this, which is powerful as well. It's only minus 12 on block, meaning that most of the time the worst thing you're going to eat in terms of punishment is going to be a 11 frame while standing 4 or something like that. So yeah, and then same combo as off of the counter down back 3, you're just going to do 2-2, and then you're going to do a running throw. 65 damage, very powerful. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but outside my house right now, there's here in Japan, sometimes these people will like make food, like regional food, and drive around in their truck with a megaphone and try and sell it to people in, like, you know, where people live. And they're outside trying to sell, I think, octopus right now, so I hope it's not picking up on the microphone. They're being very loud, but if you hear anything, that's what it is. It's somebody trying to sell me octopus in the middle of the night. Okay. Next, yeah, let's mention this move because it's so good and amazing. His while standing, his full crouch down for 2, his most important, like one of his most important whiff punishers because of the range. You a lot of the time, like, you're backdashing with King and you're just sitting out here, and then when you see the whiff, you're applying this move for the massive range that it has, and then you can get your standard combo again. So very easy to understand, easy to perform. 68 damage, very good. What else? We haven't talked about capital punishment yet, which is another important King move. It's a gap closer for him. It's +2 on block, meaning that, you know, it's completely safe, except for the fact that this move can be sidestepped. It's very linear, and when it does get sidestepped, then you're in a very dangerous situation. So that's something to be aware of. But it's another launcher where you're not going to be able to get the 4-3 because it's not going to come out in time a lot of the time. You can get it, but it's kind of like a little bit specific, as you can see right here. I think it might actually be a range thing. So if you want to get a reliable combo off of this every time, just skip the 4-3, go straight into this, and you're going to get your normal combo like that for 64 damage, which is respectable. But again, you're able to get more here if you're doing slightly more advanced combos, but this is very solid and it's very easy to do, so it's where I'm going to recommend you start. Okay, have we talked about the important launchers? I think we have hop kick, back 1, down back 3, full crouch down for 1, full crouch down for 2, capital punishment. Yeah. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. It's obviously not everything, but I don't want to run out of time either. I'm not going to talk about Atlas Hammer, but I'll just mention that you basically have a Matterhorn / lightning screw. Very powerful a launcher that's going to crush highs. You basically use it when you feel like you have a read on a high. Sort of bad scrubby King players like to gamble on it at the beginning of the round, which is something you can do, but I feel like even if you get the launch in that position because your opponent just happened to do a high or something, it's not really earned, because like you're like, either you're gonna get launched or I'm gonna get launched, let's see what happens, boom, and you do Atlas Hammer, right? But if you have reads on highs, it can be used similar to a Matterhorn or a lightning screw to go under stuff and get a very powerful launch. So I'm just gonna mention that move quickly as well. Okay, let's, is there anything else? Yeah, let's go to the wall for now. Basically, there are 2 main options for damage that you're going to do with King at the wall. I'm going to show you the easiest to understand option first. It's the most conventional ender that he has. In terms of wall splat moves, Ford 4 is the best option you have in my opinion, because we've talked about it earlier. It's a safe mid homing move, which means that it's, you know, completely fantastic in terms of wall splatting, but you also have good stuff like sidestep 2. 1+2/1 is a very long range high damage option for wall splats. Be aware that it is punishable at -13. If you need other long range options of 15 frames, you have the 4-2-1. Which is amazing, and you can use this if you need a block punish at the wall to get the wall splat, which is good as well. And then when you've gotten your wall splat, down forward 4-3-4 is probably the easiest option. It's the most conventional ender he has. It does decent damage, it's very consistent, it's easy to perform, and so, you know, when you're starting out, this is a very easy to understand option. But another thing that you can do, which is something that I again recommend that you practice, is that if you can do a giant swing, you can see it in my command history there. It's the forward and then half circle forward 1, same as we talked when we talked about the throw. You can do that throw series at the wall, which can be, you know, in clutch situations a little bit difficult to do, but it's a very good damage option when you're able to get it. So I'm going to recommend that as well. And then another thing that you see King players do obviously a lot is they will do a 1-2 into a grounded throw. And the reason this works with King is it's gonna, if you use the 1-2 right there, it puts you at perfect timing for applying like a ground throw straight after. That ground throw is breakable by your opponent, but they basically have to break it correctly. They have to guess, and if they guess wrong, then you can get potentially very high damage there. So that's a good advanced option in terms of like a combo ender with King. But for now, I think the main options you want to practice is, you know, if you can get a giant swing at the wall, that's very good. But for now, you can just use this if you just want damage, and you can get some decent Oki off of this as well. Down 3 is great, as usual. So I think this is going to wrap up my initial tutorial for King, and I know there was so much stuff that I had to leave out. Which is, you know, just a consequence of the fact that I try to keep this to around 1 hour, and King has such a huge move list. But for now, start doing a lot of giant swing, mix it up with the Teddy Twister, and you've got a powerful throw mix up. You can set that up, you know, and buffer it out of your jabs. You can do it off of stuff like a down jab, which is very important. You can do it off of lows. You can do it off of, you know, lows like this. You can do it off of that low, which I recommended as well. Counter hit people with back 1, mainly ending your combos with the Shining Wizard, applying powerful Oki after that. And then yeah, I mean, overall, long range, high damage, best throws in the game by far. What a great character. And like I said, again, Sanad, thank you so much for all the help that you gave me. Thanks for watching as usual, and look forward to follow-up videos on King, because I feel like there's so much more we need to talk about, and so much more I need to learn. So yeah, look forward to that as well. Thank you so much for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.